Ladies and gentlemen, when God speaks, He doesn't speak from time, He speaks from eternity. He doesn't consult circumstance, culture, or consensus. He speaks from His divine will. And when God opens His mouth concerning you, He is not giving you a suggestion. He is announcing your original blueprint. So when God says, you are going to be absolutely insane, don't flinch. Don't doubt it. Don't downplay it. Because He's not talking about the insanity of confusion. He's talking about the insanity of faith. The kind of faith that breaks the rules of reason and logic. The kind of faith that will make people question your mental stability because you are operating on a level they can't comprehend. The truth is, when you start walking in your divine assignment, you will look insane. Why? Because you are governed by a different set of instructions. You're hearing orders from another dimension. You're functioning in a world that no one else around you has seen. And any time someone carries a revelation that hasn't been revealed yet, they will be misunderstood. They will be called crazy. They will be called extreme. But they are not crazy. They are consecrated. They are not insane. They are awakened. You are going to look absolutely insane when you say no to good opportunities because you're waiting for God's perfect will. You will look insane when you leave comfort to pursue calling. You will look insane when you invest in a vision no one else believes in. You will look insane when you declare, I'm going to build something that's never been built before, even though you have no money, no support, and no applause. But what others call insanity, heaven calls obedience. Because obedience to God's voice is always offensive to natural thinking. When you start talking about purpose, vision, and destiny, people get uncomfortable because mediocrity always attacks greatness. People who gave up on their own assignment will try to convince you to abandon yours. They will tell you you're doing too much. You're dreaming too big. You're praying too long. You're believing too hard. But don't let their fear become your theology. Don't let their limitations become your language. God did not design you to be average. You were created to be a disruption, a divine interruption, a walking contradiction to the norm. The insanity God is talking about is the kind that makes you shout before the wall falls, dance before the breakthrough comes, and rejoice before the door opens. It's the insanity of building an ark when it's never rained. It's the insanity of going to battle with no sword, just to shout. It's the insanity of walking into a den of lions and sleeping like a baby. It's the insanity of saying, peace, in the middle of a storm, rise, to a dead girl, and come out to a man wrapped in grave clothes. That's the level of insanity that God wants to activate in you. This insanity is not mental instability. It is spiritual authority. It is divine clarity that makes you bold, relentless, and unshakable. It is knowing who sent you, why you're here, and what you're carrying. It is the refusal to blend in, back down, or compromise just to be liked. You weren't designed to be liked. You were designed to be light. And light does not ask darkness for permission to shine. If you're going to fulfill the call of God on your life, you have to be willing to be misunderstood. You have to be willing to walk alone. You have to be willing to obey when it's unpopular, unprofitable, and uncomfortable. Because God didn't send you to be safe. He sent you to be strategic. He didn't call you to fit in. He called you to take over. You are a vessel of heaven with a mandate on your life. That means your actions, your words, your mindset. They all come from a different kingdom. People will laugh at you. Let them laugh. They laughed at Noah too until it started raining. They called Jesus demon-possessed. They said Paul was out of his mind. But every man and woman God used had to be willing to look absolutely insane before they looked absolutely anointed. You will not be celebrated at the beginning. You will be questioned, criticized, and possibly even rejected. But don't panic. That's proof that you're on the right track. When God marks you, He separates you. And when He separates you, He consecrates you. And when He consecrates you, He equips you. But He doesn't equip you for ordinary things. He equips you to disturb, to overturn, to plant, and to build. You are a solution in the form of a person. You are a divine strategy wrapped in flesh. You are a heaven-sent disturbance to a broken system. And that, my friend, is why you will look absolutely insane. God never consults your past to determine your future. He doesn't ask your history for permission to activate your destiny. When God speaks, He pulls from eternity, not from your limitations. Your past may explain you, but it does not define you. When God declares, you are going to be absolutely insane, He is not announcing chaos, He is awakening clarity. But it is clarity that comes from a different realm. You see, what heaven calls normal, earth often calls madness. That's because divine sanity does not align with earthly systems. It does not move by statistics, probabilities, or human logic. It flows from the throne room. And anything that flows from the throne will always offend the reasoning of the crowd. You were never created to live within the borders of man's expectations. You were created to function from God's perspective. But when you start operating by revelation and not information, people will call you unwise, irrational, even irresponsible. You will look absolutely insane because you are walking by faith, not by sight. And faith is the currency of the kingdom. It is the power to see beyond what is into what could be and to act as if it's already done. Divine sanity does not wait for confirmation. It walks in conviction. And conviction will make you build when others are retreating. It will make you invest when others are saving. It will make you speak what hasn't yet been seen. It will push you to plant in famine, to praise in trouble, to trust in the fire. That is what God calls normal. But to the world, it looks like insanity. When Jesus healed the sick with a word, that was divine sanity. When he spit in the dirt to open blind eyes, that was divine sanity. When he told Peter to walk on water, that wasn't a trick. That was what heaven considers possible. And when Peter stepped out of that boat, he wasn't being crazy, he was being aligned. For a moment he was in sync with the supernatural. But the moment he looked at the logic around him, he began to sink. Why? Because the laws of the earth cannot sustain what only the Spirit initiated. You have to understand this. Common sense is the enemy of kingdom sense. Common sense is governed by fear, history, and logic. Kingdom sense is governed by faith, identity, and vision. Common sense plays it safe. Kingdom sense breaks the mold. Common sense stays in the boat. Kingdom sense walks on the water. And let me tell you, the moment you step out into kingdom thinking, people will start whispering. They'll say, "Who do you think you are?" They'll say, "That doesn't make sense." They'll say, "No one's ever done that before." And they're right. No one has. Because no one was called to do your assignment but you. You were never meant to be understood. You were meant to be obeyed. Not by people, but by the vision that governs you. And if that vision comes from God, then yes, it's going to look absolutely insane. You are not supposed to make sense in the beginning. Visionaries are always doubted before they're celebrated. Pioneers are always mocked before they're followed. But you must decide, do you want the crowd's approval or heaven's endorsement? Because you cannot have both. The crowd will cheer you when you play it safe, but heaven will back you when you move by faith. And hear this clearly, obedience will always precede understanding. You don't need to know how. It's enough to know who. When you follow the voice of God, you will do things you cannot explain. You will say yes when everything in you wants to say no. You will release what makes sense to embrace what makes purpose. And in that moment, when everything in your life seems to contradict what God told you, that's when you must choose divine sanity over earthly agreement. You're not crazy for dreaming bigger than your resources. You're not crazy for starting when others are quitting. You're not crazy for stepping out when the path isn't clear. That's not insanity. That's alignment. That's kingdom. That's faith. You are functioning the way heaven designed you to function. You are responding to a voice others cannot hear. You are seeing a future others cannot perceive. You are walking in an assignment others were never given. So stop explaining yourself. Stop diluting your vision to make others comfortable. Stop shrinking your dreams to fit into their doubts. You weren't made for their level. You were made to call them higher. But don't expect them to come with you. When Abraham heard God say, "Leave your country," he didn't run a pole. He obeyed. That's divine sanity. When Moses stretched a rod over the sea, he didn't debate with Pharaoh. He listened to heaven. That's divine sanity. When Esther said, "If I perish, I perish," that wasn't recklessness. That was clarity. That was kingdom. So yes, to them, you will look absolutely insane. But to God, you finally look like His image. You were never created to blend in. You were never sent here just to survive. You were born to stand out, to challenge the patterns of the world, to disrupt the systems that enslave people to fear, failure, and false identity. You are not a product of your environment. You are an interruption to it. You are not a citizen of this world first. You are an ambassador of another kingdom. That means your assignment is not to adapt, but to transform. You are not called to maintain what is, but to manifest what should be. When God says you're going to be absolutely insane, He's not talking about emotional instability. He's talking about a level of obedience so radical, so uncompromising, that it offends everything the world calls normal. God does not send His people into systems to get along with them. He sends them in to overturn them, to realign them, to expose the lie and establish the truth. You weren't designed to maintain Babylon. You were called to bring the kingdom into Babylon. From the beginning, the world has tried to train you to survive. Get a job, pay bills, stay quiet, play it safe, retire, and die. That's not purpose, that's programming. You were not created for safety. You were born to reign. To reign means to have dominion. It means to influence, to legislate from heaven to earth, to speak with authority in places of confusion, to challenge what has been normalized by dysfunction. And anyone who dares to do that will always be labeled as too much, too intense, or just plain insane. You were not born to be domesticated. You were born to be dangerous. Not in the flesh, but in the spirit. You were born to disturb hell's agenda and awaken God's design. The world's system says climb the ladder. God's order says carry the cross. The world says compete for position. God says serve with humility. The world says follow trends. God says follow truth. When you start living by His order, you will naturally contradict theirs. That contradiction is not rebellion, it is revelation. You are revealing what heaven looks like in a world that has forgotten its creator. God's order is upside down to the world. He says the first will be last. He says lose your life to find it. He says love your enemy, bless those who curse you, do good to those who hate you. To the culture, that is insanity. But to the kingdom, it is divine strategy. Because the only way to overthrow a counterfeit system is to operate in truth so pure, it exposes the lie without needing to attack it. You are not here to survive within a broken system. You are here to reveal an unshakable one. Survival is not your inheritance. Dominion is. But dominion only belongs to those who know who they are. That's why the system works so hard to make you forget your identity. It teaches you to settle, to shrink, to depend on what they offer, rather than what God has already placed inside of you. But I came to remind you, you were not designed for dependency. You were created for dominion. You don't need to be accepted. You need to be activated. And hear me, when you start defying the system with your obedience, it will push back. The system will call you arrogant when you walk in confidence. It will call you rebellious when you reject compromise. It will call you unrealistic when you step out in faith. But don't let the noise of culture silence the clarity of your calling. You weren't meant to be understood by the system. You were meant to disrupt it. Look at Joseph. He didn't survive Egypt. He ruled it. Look at Daniel. He didn't blend into Babylon. He led in it. Look at Jesus. He didn't come to confirm tradition. He came to fulfill it and replace it. And look at you, called, chosen, and sent with the same Spirit that raised Christ from the dead. You carry power that was never meant to settle for survival. You carry vision that was never meant to shrink in the face of opposition. So stop apologizing for being different. Stop watering down your call so others can feel comfortable. You are not here to participate in the cycle. You are here to break it. You are not here to survive the pressure. You are here to reveal the kingdom under it. Let them call you crazy. Let them say you're out of your mind. The truth is, you've never been more in alignment. You've never been more in sync with heaven's order. Because the insanity God refers to is your radical obedience to His order, even when it contradicts culture, tradition, and opinion. When God sets you apart, He doesn't ask for public opinion. He doesn't wait for consensus before He calls you. And when He gives you purpose, He delivers it without apology. But here's the reality: the moment you begin to walk in that purpose, people will misunderstand you. They will label you. They will whisper behind your back. Why? Because you refuse to bow to their idols. You refuse to pursue their version of success. You chose obedience over applause. You chose destiny over acceptance. You chose to follow God, even when it made you look absolutely insane. Purpose has a strange way of making you invisible to people who are impressed by performance. You won't always be the loudest. You won't always be the most liked. But you will be the most grounded. Because when you're governed by purpose, you're no longer enslaved by applause. You don't need the crowd to validate what God already approved. You don't need affirmation to obey instruction. You don't need followers to move in faith. The truth is, when you are truly in purpose, popularity becomes irrelevant You see, popularity is based on perception. But purpose is based on origin. Popularity comes from what people see. Purpose comes from what God said. People can make you famous and people can cancel you. But purpose is eternal. Purpose was written before you had a name. It was carved into your spirit before you took your first breath. Purpose does not expire when people stop clapping. In fact, purpose often begins where applause ends. This is why God will often hide you before He reveals you. Because if you build your identity on applause, you'll fall apart in silence. But if you're rooted in purpose, you can be rejected and still keep rising. You can be ignored and still keep building. You can be mocked and still keep moving. Because you weren't called to impress people. You were called to complete an assignment. When Noah built the ark, he looked insane. For 120 years, he obeyed a word no one else heard. He preached a message no one wanted. He followed an instruction no one understood. But because he chose purpose over popularity, he became a deliverer in a generation that was drowning. He wasn't building for approval. He was building for survival. Purpose kept him focused when mockery tried to distract him. And in the end, purpose saved what popularity would have drowned. The same people who laugh at your discipline will later envy your results. The same crowd that calls you crazy now will wish they had your courage later. But by then, it will be too late. Because God does not wait for the crowd to agree. He's not looking for fans, He's looking for the faithful. And purpose always chooses the narrow road, the lonely place, the silent preparation. That's why it's painful. That's why it's private. That's why it's misunderstood. But that's also why it's powerful. The anointing on your life is not for popularity. It's for purpose. That oil costs something. It was crushed out of your obedience, your tears, your losses, your dying to self. It wasn't given so you could win likes. It was given so you could fulfill destiny. And if you're still measuring your value by visibility, you haven't yet discovered your identity. Because when purpose governs you, obscurity doesn't bother you. Delay doesn't discourage you. Silence doesn't stop you. You know who sent you. You know why you were born. God's vision for your life will make you look strange before it makes you great. Joseph looked strange when he told his brothers his dreams. David looked strange bringing lunch to a battlefield and then picking a fight with a giant. Mary looked strange when she said yes to carrying a child by the Spirit. Jesus looked strange eating with sinners, touching lepers, flipping tables, and forgiving his killers. But in the end, it was purpose, not popularity, that changed history. So let them talk. Let them mock. Let them misunderstand you. You're not here for recognition. You're here for transformation. You're not here to be liked. You're here to be light. You're not here to blend in. You're here to blaze a trail. Popularity fades. Crowds shift. Opinions change. But purpose remains. Purpose sustains. Purpose fulfills. And if God called you, it doesn't matter who doesn't clap. The moment you step into your divine assignment, you must be prepared for resistance. Not just from the enemy, but from people. You will not be applauded. You will not be celebrated. You will be questioned, labeled, misunderstood. And that's exactly how God designed it. Because your calling is not meant to blend in with culture. It's meant to confront it. The very nature of your assignment is disruptive. It will make religious minds uncomfortable. It will agitate complacent hearts. It will provoke those who are bound by tradition, trapped in systems, and addicted to the opinions of man. When you begin to walk in the fullness of what God has placed inside you, don't be surprised when accusation follows. They won't understand why you won't compromise. They'll question why you don't settle. They'll criticize the intensity of your obedience. And they will try to label what they can't control. They'll call you a fanatic because you're focused. They'll say you're extreme because you don't bend. They'll call you crazy because you see what they don't see and obey what they can't hear. But let me tell you something, your identity was never meant to be defined by earthly labels. You are not here for acceptance, you are here for assignment. An assignment will always provoke accusation because the anointing exposes what comfort wants to conceal. People would rather keep things familiar than confront what's broken. So when you show up with a word from God, with fire in your bones, and authority in your mouth, don't expect everyone to celebrate. Expect warfare. Expect slander. Expect rumors. But don't retreat. Jesus himself was accused, not by sinners, but by the religious. He healed the sick. And they said he had a demon. He forgave sins. And they said he was blasphemous. He cast out devils, and they said he was possessed. Why? Because he moved with a kingdom that didn't ask for permission. He operated with authority that didn't need validation. And when you carry that same spirit, you will provoke the same kind of resistance. But hear me clearly, heaven is not looking for approval ratings. Heaven is looking for representatives. God is not running a popularity contest. He is advancing a kingdom, and he's searching for people who will act like him in the middle of a world that has forgotten who he is. Bold people, unshaken people, obedient people. People who don't flinch in the face of accusation, because they know the difference between noise and direction. Accusation is not proof that you're wrong. It's often confirmation that you're right on track. The enemy does not waste energy on silent, passive believers. He attacks voices. He attacks movement. He attacks obedience. So if you're under pressure, it's because you're carrying something powerful. If they're lying on your name, it's because they can't stop your assignment. If they're trying to distort your image, it's because they can't disarm your impact. And don't forget, accusation has always been part of the process. Joseph was accused of what he didn't do. Moses was rejected by the very people he was trying to lead. Nehemiah was mocked for building a wall. Elijah was hunted for carrying the word of the Lord. Paul was beaten for preaching truth. Jesus was crucified for redeeming mankind. So why should you expect anything different? You were born into a battle. You were not called to escape it. You were called to win in it. The question is not whether people will accuse you. The question is, will you keep building anyway? Will you keep speaking anyway? Will you keep believing, fasting, praying, writing, creating, launching, even when it makes you a target? Because your assignment is not about you. It's about who you're sent to. And if you silence your voice to keep your image, someone's deliverance will be delayed. You can't afford to be soft when the kingdom has called you to be strong. Let them talk. Let them speculate. Let them point fingers. You're not here for comfort. You're here for confrontation. Not in the flesh, but in the spirit. You're here to confront lies with truth, to confront fear with faith, to confront culture with kingdom. And you don't need to defend yourself. Your obedience will speak louder than any accusation ever could. So wear the label, embrace the stairs. Walk through the fire. Because God didn't call you to be liked. He called you to be light. And when you carry his light, darkness will always try to shout. But no matter how loud the noise gets, keep moving. Because the only thing worse than being accused is being disobedient. You were not sent to earth to simply talk. You were sent to transform. You were not born to echo the noise of culture. You were born to carry the weight of heaven's agenda. You don't just have a message, you carry a mandate. And that's why you feel different. That's why you can't settle. That's why you can't compromise. Because God didn't just give you words. He put fire in your bones. He didn't just give you ideas. He gave you blueprints from another realm. You are not just a voice crying in the wilderness. You are a vessel charged with heaven's intent. And yes, to the carnal mind it looks insane. Why? Because what you carry isn't born of this realm. The kingdom you represent doesn't operate by the rules of this world. The system you come from is eternal. The wisdom you move in is spiritual. The vision in your heart didn't come from a boardroom. It came from the throne room. And that alone makes you dangerous. Because people can ignore a message, but they cannot ignore a mandate backed by the authority of heaven. When God places a mandate on your life, it redefines your entire existence. It governs how you walk. It shapes how you talk. It disciplines how you think. A message can be optional, but a mandate is not. A message may inspire people, but a mandate ignites movements. A message may get attention, but a mandate brings divine disruption. And the moment you start to move in that mandate, people will not understand you. They will call you intense. They will call you dramatic. Some will even call you mentally unstable. But the truth is, they're witnessing someone who is no longer ruled by the approval of man, but driven by the command of God. You are carrying the mind of Christ in a world drunk on compromise. You are carrying kingdom strategy in a culture obsessed with popularity. You are sent with a divine code into a system governed by mediocrity, and that's why hell is threatened by you. That's why warfare intensifies when you start to move, because you don't just carry a word. You carry a weapon. You don't just speak life. You release heaven. You don't just inspire change. You enforce alignment. You were sent to shift the atmosphere, not adapt to it. And make no mistake, your mandate will cost you. It will cost your comfort. It will cost your convenience. It will cost your need to be understood. Because when you carry what God has entrusted to you, you can't afford to be casual. You can't afford to be complacent. Your silence isn't neutral, it's disobedient. When you hold back, people stay bound. When you delay, divine windows close. So no, you don't have the luxury of hesitation. You were born for movement, not management. You were born for dominion, not diplomacy. Don't confuse this with arrogance. This is awareness. You are aware that the treasure inside you didn't come from man, so man can't define how it should look. You are aware that your dreams aren't delusional, they're divine. You are aware that your assignment is not a hobby. It's heaven's heartbeat moving through a human vessel. And once you become aware of the mandate, you can never go back to normal. You can't play it safe. You can't tone it down. You can't fit in. Because oil doesn't ask for permission to pour, and truth doesn't ask for approval to be spoken. You carry what eye has not seen, what ear has not heard, what has not entered the hearts of men, but has been revealed by the Spirit. And when God reveals something to your spirit, the world will think it's insanity. But what they call insanity, God calls intimacy. You've been in His presence. You've seen the unseen. And now you're dangerous because you cannot unsee it. You cannot unhear it. You cannot unknow what God has shown you. And that kind of clarity will offend those who are still guessing. So let them call you insane. Let them question your motives. Let them misunderstand your passion. Because you're not here to make noise. You're here to make history. You're not here to transform. You're not here to entertain flesh. You're here to enforce heaven. That's the mandate. That's the weight. That's the call. And if it makes you look strange to the world, so be it. Because in the end, the world doesn't need more voices. It needs vessels. People so possessed by divine purpose that they become walking manifestations of God's agenda. You carry a kingdom. You carry a fire. You carry a mantle. And no, you are not insane. You are sent. So now, let the record show when God said you were going to be absolutely insane, He wasn't insulting you. He was identifying you. He was unlocking the real you. He was calling forth the version of you that this world could never produce, never predict, and never contain. He was summoning the original design He placed in you before time began. You were never meant to be normal, never meant to blend in, never meant to bow to systems you were born to overturn. That fire in your spirit, that restlessness in your bones, that refusal to settle for mediocrity. It's not rebellion, it's recognition. Your spirit knows you were sent with something heaven can't afford to lose. Stop asking for permission to be who God already called. Stop watering down your vision to make it digestible for minds not built to receive it. Stop explaining your assignment to people who have no revelation of your mandate. God didn't send you here to be understood. He sent you to be effective. And effectiveness often looks like insanity to those who worship the familiar. So rise. Step out of the shadows of fear, out of the graveyards of public opinion, and into the full expression of your calling. The world doesn't need another copy. It needs your original. It needs the divine disturbance you carry, the unconventional grace, the unpredictable obedience, the unshakable authority. You were born to provoke, to rebuild, to confront, to reintroduce heaven's order in a generation drowning in confusion. And yes, it will cost you, it will mark you, it will separate you, but it will also anoint you. Let them call you insane. Let them whisper, let them mock. Because when the dust settles and the smoke clears, history will not remember who laughed. It will remember who obeyed. And heaven will not reward who was liked. It will reward who was faithful. You are not here to be impressive. You are here to be impactful. And the most dangerous person in any generation is not the one who speaks the loudest, but the one who obeys without compromise. You don't just have a message. You are the message. You don't just carry truth. You are the evidence. And you don't just belong to a kingdom. You were sent to enforce it. So walk in that insanity. Live in that contradiction. Preach in that fire. Build in that tension. Lead with that clarity, because if God said it, it's already settled. You are not crazy. You are called. You are not extreme. You are anointed. You are not broken. You are becoming. And the world has no category for what God is raising in you. That's why they call it insane. But in the courts of heaven, they call it obedience.